What's that? Some more people want to play Escape from Tarkov. Alright, well, I'll try to help as best as I can. Thanks, David. So you want to play Escape from Tarkov? Well, you came to the right video. Because in this video, we're not going to be talking about in-raid complex topics or things you really don't need to know right away. Here, we're going to be talking about the very first things that you see and interact with as a new player. I've been playing Escape from Tarkov for quite a long time, on and off, quite frequently. There's many times where I just don't really like the game because of certain issues, and there's other times that I fall in love with the game all over again and I play it nonstop. Like, for example, this current wipe that we're in right now has been the most fun I've ever had with the game ever. And it kind of inspired me to start doing this VTubing content creation and streaming the game on Twitch. So while I have been playing for a while, I've picked up a lot of things that I wish I knew when I started, especially things that aren't actually in the main game when you're shooting things and when you're looting things. Things in the main menu, such as the hideout, traders, and your stash. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. If you play Rust, the open world survival game, then you kind of already know what I mean when I say wipe. In Escape from Tarkov, essentially every 5 months there is a complete game wipe, meaning that everybody, no matter how far you are into the game, into the current wipe, are set back to the very beginning, like you're a new player. Why they do this is for a variety of reasons. For one, because of how hardcore Escape from Tarkov is, it has garnered a very hardcore community. And these community members can get to the end of the game very quickly. And while they're there, they essentially have nothing to do. So wiping gives them a reason to keep playing. It also allows Battle State Games to test out new content and new features that they developed. And once again, it keeps everyone kind of on the same playing field. And while I personally don't like Rust wipes because I hate building a base and just having it disappear, this is the only game I'll say where wiping kind of feels like it makes sense. Because if it never happens, things like the flea market, which is completely player driven, would just become stale and people would just be bored, essentially. So if the idea of restarting scares you after you worked so long to get to like the end of the game, completely understandable, but once you get in and try it, you'll kind of see why it's done. And here is where you're going to spend most of your time, this main menu. It's joked that Escape from Tarkov can be considered a main menu or loading simulator because you spend quite a lot of time in the menu and loading into game. But this right here is the granddaddy of them all, where you're going to spend hours of your time. All right, first lesson of the day. The traders that you will have the honor of interacting with is Prapor, the angry grandfather. Therapist, the equally as angry and grouchy grandmother. Fence, the guy who took his computer science and cybersecurity classes way too seriously. Skier, the guy who takes selling broken down Smarties in the cafeteria during school way too seriously. Peacekeeper, the guy who likes airsoft just a little too much. Mechanic, the dad type who loves to build cars and brag to other people how much he knows about cars. Ragman is the type of guy who buys Yeezys for $5,000 at a discount supermarket and likes to brag about it. And Jaeger, the guy who eats all of the food in a 20-mile radius. Now, traders are important because they give you the primary way that you're going to be leveling up and progressing through Tarkov, and that is through their many different quests. There are hundreds of quests in Tarkov. Some of them are really easy that I advise doing right when you get them. Some of them are really hard that you might not even complete through the entire wipe that you're playing through. And these traders are going to try really hard to make you their little pet. And I love being their good boy, but you might not. So here are some tips that I advise you take in consideration once you're starting out. Realized I've been calling them quests and not tasks, but don't worry, literally the same thing. So this first bit of advice is really self-explanatory and probably the easiest to grasp, and it's going to be based off of the person. But do quests that you think sound the most entertaining. For example, when I was starting Tarkov, I would just do the quests that were given to me as they came in. So I would do them top to bottom, because I like to be organized and I like to stay on top of things like that. But I soon learned that I despise quests that, for one, make me kill things with certain weapons or wearing certain things, or two, where you have to do a bunch of objectives and survive in the same raid. I don't really like doing those quests, and unfortunately there are a lot of those in Tarkov because it's such a hardcore game, and there's a lot of different quests that you'll be able to choose from as a player. So for example, like I just mentioned, there's exploration based quests, there's killing based quests where you either have to kill scavs or PMCs, and there's like extraction based quests where you have to go to an area, grab something, and leave. That's a very basic way to say it, but again, I learned that I really like those exploration quests, and I liked them even better when I didn't need to survive in the same raid, because it's a lot of stress. Imagine going across the map, getting to where you need to go, getting your little check mark, and then getting killed on your way out. Those are infuriating, and there's one quest in particular that took me weeks to do, and it shall remain unnamed. Once you have the quests that you think you're going to have the most fun doing, and as you try to work your way through them, you're probably going to reach a point where you're inundated with a lot of other quests, because you're not going to be able to complete them as fast as you're leveling up at the beginning, like levels 1 through 5, then 5 through 10. So you're going to reach a point where you have a lot of quests that you're looking at from a lot of different traders, and some of them are going to be high risk, low reward quests, and some of them are going to be low risk and pretty good rewards, all things considered. So this tip is do the quests that have the lowest risk and give you the best rewards. For example, say that you're a few levels into the game and you unlock the quest Healthcare Privacy Part 2. This quest right here. Now what this quest from Therapist is going to ask you to do, it's going to send you to Shoreline to the health resort to mark a ambulance. And why is this high risk? Well, you're going to the health resort on Shoreline. And the health resort on Shoreline is the only landmark in that entire map that, one, has the best loot, such as LEDX's, and two, has a lot of other quests that require you to go there. There's mechanic quests, there's other therapist quests, and so on and so forth. A lot of players rush the resort right away. It's where the PvP happens, it's where the loot is, and it's where the quests are. And the toxic endgame players, sorry to admit it, they exist, and there's quite a lot of them. They will go there and camp it to stop people from questing. I have experienced this firsthand while trying to do Healthcare Privacy Part 2. Literally, a guy was sitting in a corner flaming me and my friend, who's an endgame player, who was helping me because I was still new at the game at the time and I just couldn't do it. It took a while. So again, look at the quest rewards, and this is how you'll gauge it. You'll look at the quest rewards and you'll see the XP and the money. Again, for example, Healthcare Privacy Part 2 only gives you 25,000 rubles, 4 Sluic kits, 0.4 rep, and a good amount of XP. Pardon the interruption, I was actually wrong. I misread the quest name. This is actually Healthcare Privacy Part 1, and Healthcare Privacy Part 1 gives you IFAK, first aid kits, and 23,000 rubles. Same thing, really not that good. Alright, let's continue. Whereas another quest that is relatively low risk but higher rewards would be BP Depot, which all you have to do is go around customs and mark fuel tanks, and what you get for that is 31,000 rubles, 2 expeditionary fuel tanks, which we'll talk about later, a Keter, rep, and a little bit of a minus to Jaeger. But all things considered, you're not going to be running into trolls and a lot of people doing that quest. They're spread around the map. So gauge which quests have the lowest risk and better rewards when in comparison to the quests that have the highest risks and the lowest rewards. And you'll find that you'll be blazing through your quests a little bit quicker until you have to unfortunately make your way to those harder quests to progress. And finally, the last tip that I really have for quests when you're starting out is do the gunsmith quests. This is more a jab at myself, but do them. The reason why I say do the gunsmith quests are because they're really relatively easy quests, because you don't need to do anything. You don't need to leave the main menu. You can buy everything mostly from the traders you have access to at that point, or the flea market later on when you have higher level gunsmith quests. You start off just modifying a basic shotgun, this one right here, and then eventually you'll get to a point where you're modifying AKs and assault rifles like Gunsmith Part 6 and onwards, And that's when they get a little expensive, but they're no risk missions, and they have pretty good rewards because you unlock certain trades and you get money. You pretty much get the amount of money that you spent back, and you get weapon parts that you can just sell if you want. So they're really easy quests with absolutely no risk, so just do them right when you get them. I'm level 23, and I haven't done Gunsmith Part 6 yet because I'm a lazy druid, but they're really easy to do. And the worst mistake is just ignoring them because it's XP for literally nothing. Don't be like me. Now that we cover traders and some tips on how to handle your quests as a new player, let's briefly, in like 10 seconds, talk about reputation, which you've heard me say a few times and which you've likely seen in a few quest rewards. What you're seeing above me to the right, where that little square is, that's your reputation. Now, you want that to be high. So for example, my reputation with Skier right now is 0.38, and I need it to be 0.40, and I need to be level 28, and I need to have spent 16 million rubles with him in order to level him up. So reputation is mostly used for getting your traders to the next level, but it's still a vastly important bit of information that honestly is not taught to you at all. It took me 2 wipes to learn what that is. But once you start leveling up your traders by hitting those reputation, player level, and money requirements, then you'll start to see their stores become a lot better. Their level 2 and 3 versions. For example, you get a lot more medicine when you hit level 2 and 3 with Therapist, and you get access to attachments for your guns that you weren't able to buy previously and that aren't purchasable on the flea market with Mechanic level 2 and 3. And the way you get reputation predominantly is through questing. So you always want to make sure you're at least trying to progress your quests. Next up, and there's only so much I can say about this next component, and that is the player stash in the character tab. Now honestly, as a new player, this is probably the first thing you're going to be looking at, and depending on what version of the game you have, your stash is either going to be very large or very small. I have the Edge of Darkness edition, and unfortunately that version of the game is no longer for sale. Now they're selling Stash DLC, which actually can make it bigger than the Edge of Darkness edition. So what you see here should be a relatively good gauge on the size that most players will have. But like I said, this is probably the first thing that you as a new player is going to be looking at. And the only thing I'm going to tell you to make this more digestible to look at is think of it like a game of Tetris. That is literally all it is. Later on, when you have a bunch of shit, it looks like Tetris, and it kind of plays like Tetris. You can rotate things to make them fit better. You can fold guns to make them fit better. You can buy cases to put other things in. You can put backpacks inside of backpacks. It is literally Tetris, military Tetris. Just think about it like that, and it will make your life a whole lot easier. The last thing that I'll leave you with, which is also of relatively high importance, which I neglected for literally years, is the existence of the hideout. Now again, I'm telling you this so you don't make the same mistake that I did. The hideout is critical. When you can work on your hideout, work on it. That's because you get a variety of different bonuses as it progresses. I'm not close to even having my hideout fully built, but this is the furthest I've ever gotten in any wipe, and I can tell you that the bonuses to recovery, strength, intelligence, and just these other things are very beneficial. So once you get comfortable with the game, start taking a look at the hideout, and if you have friends to play with, they'll probably tell you to hold on to certain items that you'll need in order to upgrade your hideout. There's some very expensive items like motors that are over 100k that you're going to need a lot of for various parts of your hideout. And while I can make a whole 30-minute video on how to upgrade your hideout and the process behind it, thankfully, unlike 90% of this game, it's actually not that complicated to learn how you're going to upgrade your hideout, because it tells you everything in game. For example, I'll give you a little example from my end. I have water collector level 2, and what I need to get water collector level 3 is have Jaeger at level 3, have the generator at level 3, and some other components that I can buy off the flea market like wrenches and some supplies. That is pretty much how the hideout works. Think of it like I don't want to say a tier tree, but like a a level up path. Things are going to need to be certain levels to get other things leveled up. Like security needs to be level 2 before you can work on vents, or the vice versa, so on and so forth. And it all tells you that in the menu. So thankfully, this is actually pretty easy, and I was able to self-teach myself the hideout. But don't make the same mistake I did and ignore it. Rush the hideout when you can. It is very important to do. And a little sneak peek, you'll get things later on like booze generator and Bitcoin farm that literally takes the worry of money out of the game, which we haven't really talked about, just the ruble economy. So once again, your hideout is very critical to your success as a new player, and then later on just as a returning player. And just so you can see the power of how the hideout benefits you, this is me doing a really quick craft for some ammo, because I already had components for it during my time looting, and the value of it is pretty good, and it makes 150 bullets. So you can just imagine the really low cost it was for me to make this, but I get a lot in return. And doing crafting in your hideout is a really good way to make money, so it's just another reason why you should focus on your hideout when you can. The last thing that's worth a mention, and it's why Escape from Tarkov is kind of called an MMO in some sense, and very vaguely I use that term, is the fact that they have skills like this. And the skills you level up passively as you play the game, and like many other things in Tarkov, they give you bonuses when they level up. For example, your health skill, once that starts leveling up, you'll have more overall health, which can, in essence, kind of make you more tanky if they're like shooting your body and you have armor, but not really that much. You can level up your endurance by running, so that increases your stamina, and it allows you to run for longer without being really loud and panting. You can increase your strength by throwing grenades, which increases how far you can throw them. You can do that by also working out in the gym, so on and so forth. So the skills, they don't really tell you about them at all. They're kind of just a tab in your character section that's not highlighted at all. So you might not even know they exist unless someone tells you, like me. So just keep skills in mind. They're going to be leveling up passively as you go, so you really don't need to think much about it unless you want to rush a specific skill. Like mag drills, for example, you can reload faster, you can check your chamber faster. But they're a nice addition to know about as you start your journey in Tarkov. And that's pretty much all of the tips that I have to give at a very basic level. And again, this is for the players who have literally just installed the game, landed in the main menu, and were shocked at all the stuff that's put in front of them because there's literally no tutorial. And this is also for the players that might have a few hours in the game, got into a few raids, but got killed by someone sitting in a bush that they can't see, or by Chads running around with their $1 million guns and their slicks and their backpacks that can hold an entire town, and just bullying lower level players and Timmies who are just trying to learn. My goal was to hopefully allow this to take a load off your mind and allow you to approach this game a little bit more organized instead of screaming and putting on armor and gear and going in there and losing it. And I will be doing videos in the future that are a little bit more complex in raid things, but I'm saving that for later because I'm still learning myself. I've only been playing for a year or two. I'm not that good with the super granular complex things, but I am really good with the stuff I talked about here, and I really hope it helped you. And thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in Tarkov. But wait, there's more. If you really liked that content and you want to see more from me, you can head over to twitch.tv/worldbuilder9971, where I'm live playing games like Escape from Tarkov a lot, and recently, and regrettably, Escape from Tarkov Arena. And my goal is to help out as many people as I can with the game, so if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in chat. And I usually play with my good friend Jordan, who is a Tarkov expert and game player. He's been playing since alpha, and we're also really close to hitting affiliate. So again, if you like my content, feel free to swing by and drop a follow.